Just a quick little video to talk about my experiences and maybe start a little diary, just as a matter of interest about cold showers, cold water therapy, if you want to call it. Today is actually the second day, but let's just say for argument's sake, for this one, just keep it simple as day one since it's the first video. Um, yeah, I just decided yesterday. I got up and I thought, why not just try a cold shower today? And I mean, like ice cold, so only the cold tap, full blast, no warm water at all. Let's just see how it goes. Don't think about it too much. Um, and yeah, I gave it a go. And it was shocking to say the least. Very much a shock to my nervous system, and of course, every single part of my, uh, you know, survival-based, impulses were going absolutely crazy. Like, no, it's too cold. Stop it. Get out. Warm yourself up. Do whatever. Turn the warm tap on. Blah blah blah. And it just, yeah, it seemed very uncomfortable. But it's weird actually when you just like, irrespective of hearing that or feeling that, you just go ahead and do something anyway. It's actually quite a liberating experience. And there's a lot of research out there. There's a lot of people out there who advocate uh, cold showers as a means to sort of improve your lifestyle and your health in many different ways. Some people say from a productivity perspective, just starting the day with a cold shower, you face your fears and you do something that you don't want to do early on, which will like wire your brain up to get used to doing that a lot quicker, a lot more efficiently, and a lot easier. That's one way of looking at it. Some people say it's really helped them with depression and low mood, negative thoughts, feeling processes. And some people, again, from a biohacking or health perspective, have been looking at it from that way. Uh, Increasing testosterone and stuff like that is one of the things, like for example, that comes up for men, which I'm sure is a great benefit. And all of these things are really good for your general health and well-being. But one thing I did want to say about just my experience of actually having tried it and now having done it for a second day is we talk about, or if you ever looked into, I don't know whether you've ever come across Tony Robbins before, or it's a pretty widely known sort of model or way of thinking. Tony Robbins speaks he speaks a lot about this, but there's three things in your sort of life, if you will. You've got the three S's, which is your state, your story, and your strategy. And when you look at these things, they go in order of sort of effect or magnitude. So your state is your most powerful, then your story, and then your strategy. Now we live in a world, we live in a time, situation, circumstances where people are very, very, very much inclined to go from what seems like the most powerful or the most, the quickest route into something, which is the strategy. And they actually don't pay much attention to the story, which is governing a lot of what they are doing and why they're doing it. But even more importantly so than that, the thing which underpins all, which can be at any given time, is your state. And cold shower therapy or cold water therapy or whatever you want to call it is actually a very, very interesting exercise from looking at your state and how quickly and how easy it is, considering it's the most powerful thing about your being, essentially, that you can attack, or you can, well, I wouldn't like to use the word attack because it seems very Yeah, it's not about attacking, but let's just say, yeah, something to address or something to become more conscious or more aware of. When you start to focus on that, as an example, you realize that you can actually change the way in which you are perceiving yourself, the world around you, anything and everything in a matter of minutes. And it doesn't mean you sit under, freezing cold water or ice water for the same amount of time. You might be inclined to have a hot shower, because I know for example, in a hot shower, I'll take my time because it can be very relaxing. Um, but a cold shower, it's just, yeah, you're not going to be in there for half an hour, at least not to begin with anyway. So a few minutes, and it literally transforms the way you think, the way you feel. Your breathing, for starters, you're forced, physiologically, you're forced to breathe much deeper, and much more fuller, because your body is in just such a state of shock. Your central nervous system is completely, like, thrown into overdrive, like, what the hell is going on, kind of thing, like, am I dying, am I in danger? So it forces you to take a deep breath. You become conscious of your chakras more. You're breathing from your throat, you're breathing from your chest, and you're breathing deep into your stomach, your belly, and you carry the power of all of that breath right into your body, and you can feel all of that energy circulate inside of you and around your body. And that in itself, it's a transformative experience in a very small moment. And getting used to experiencing that regularly will help you to recognize that no matter what you're thinking or feeling on a sort of a longer term or an ongoing basis, like a day to day, week to week, month to month, year to year sort of basis, you can snap out of it like that, literally just like that, anytime. So that's the state that we're talking about. And the great thing, like I said, about your state is that you have the power, whatever you're feeling, whatever you're thinking, whether it's negative or positive, you have the power to influence that at any given time, very quickly. And that is the most powerful thing that will influence why you're doing what you're doing, why maybe you're not getting what you want, or why you are getting what you want. And it's very good, just to, from an awareness perspective, to just think about, okay, I have this consciousness now, I have this awareness around this particular part of my existence, that I can now use this information, this new information that I have, to influence my life in a more positive way. We then look at the story in terms of the 3 S's. So what's the story? The story is our thoughts and feelings around who we are and what we're doing and why we're doing it. It's often not something that we're conscious of, because it's come about as a result of years of experience and what we call in neuro-linguistic programming, or NLP, our maps of the world. Now, your map of the world is essentially a collection of all of your sensory experiences from the duration of your whole life. So you develop this map as such of all of the things that you've experienced from your senses, from the second you were born until this present moment. So you can imagine there's so many sensory inputs that you will have gathered over that time frame, and the collection of that heavily influences the way in which you experience your life. So if you had a traumatic birth, for example, that may play a very strong part in your physiological development, because the way in which you are actually brought into this world, or have come out of the womb, was such a strong sensory experience that you carry that with you energetically. Some might describe something like that as trauma, but ultimately everything is energy. And so if you consider that fact, you may now be in your 20s, in your 30s, in your 40s, beyond. You're carrying energy with you at any and every given time. And this energy may be positive in some respects, and it may be negative in some respects. And the collection of that energy is ultimately held in your physical body, but also your energy body, which is something you can't see. So there's times at which you may feel, or you may experience other people, and they're very dense, very, very dense. They're carrying a lot of strong energy, strong negative energy, where it's almost like exhausting to be around them. It's almost like, oh man, like this guy's a drag. Like, oh, so negative, man. And that person might not even be conscious or be aware of the fact that they carry this kind of energy with them throughout their lives. But it gives you a great indicator into what story they might have. Now, our stories are again something which are so powerful, because again they govern why we do what we do. And I'll go deeper into this in another video, but it's important to note that your state can actually have an influence on your story. If you have a positive state, you experience people who are in a great frame of mind. They're always thinking positively, they're always moving forward. And that doesn't mean to say they're perfect. Nobody's perfect, and there's a balancing effect, with every positive there's a negative. That's just a law of nature. So it doesn't mean to say that just because somebody's positive that they've got something that you don't, exists within you. But when you start to experience an imbalance, that's when it's an indicator that, okay, there's something to think about here. So if you're thinking about a lot about, say for example, your lifestyle might be governed by a story that you've created, which is around the subject of money, which is one of the most powerful subjects and one of the most misunderstood subjects about our existence. You might constantly be driven by this fear of not having enough money. I don't have enough, or I'm not going to have enough if I don't do X, Y, and Z. And as a result of that, you might be inclined towards making decisions and making choices in your life which are not ideal, which are not what you want in life, really. If you really were to think and feel about what you really want and what kind of person you are and what your existence is representative of, what your life is about, you make decisions that go against that, because you're driven by this fear. You're driven by this story. If I don't have enough money, I'm going to starve, and if I starve, then I'm going to die. It's as simple as that. It sounds ridiculous. It almost sounds illogical. Like, come on, man. Like, okay, I'm not gonna starve. Like, we don't live in circumstances, especially not in the first world. I mean, some people do, but for the most part, the people that are listening to this or watching this video, it's highly unlikely that you're living a life where you're that close to. So where do we create these stories from? It's something to think about. And how is it that you can go from having a positive story that a negative story that influences your life in a negative way? For example, around the subject of, money, sex, food, survival, essentially, well-being, relationships, all these different areas of your life. How can you go from taking a negative story, which is influencing your life ultimately in a negative way, which is influencing the choices that you make, which is your strategy, to rewiring and becoming aware of a more positive one. And finally, the strategy. So again, like we've all heard it before, again, bringing it back to the subject of money. We live in a world again where we want things and we want them now, we want them fast, we want the quick route, and we want to basically get there ASAP. And as a result of that, what we do is we look at the most obvious factors that we're faced with. For example, in the subject of money, again, a lot of you guys will be able to sort of relate. But growing up, for me, everybody was about getting their money on, getting their hustle on, and it's still normal. But back then, even 15, 20 years ago, growing up, it was all about, oh, this guy got rich, this guy got wealthy, because he got into property, or he used to sell cars, or he, whatever it was, he started a business, he got into takeaways, he got into this, he got into that, blah, blah, blah. Nowadays, it tends to be NFTs and crypto. Everybody's into crypto now, or, this guy, he made like £100,000 because, he invested some silly money into something and now it's gone crazy. I'm going to do that as well. So you start focusing on the strategy. Now, the thing is about the strategy, and in fact, one of the most prevalent and underlying unconscious and very, very, very widely out there and normal strategies that we have is, I make money by going to work and getting a job, and I get my salary every month, and I'm happy with my 1,500 quid, 2 grand, whatever, 3 grand a month that I get, and it pays for my lifestyle and my living and a little bit on top. So I'm cool with that, and I'm just going to keep plugging away at that for the next 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, get myself a house, get married, get a car, blah, 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 blah. You know the story, the strategy. And there's nothing wrong with that if that's what you want and that's what you're happy with. But the idea about bringing your awareness to these sorts of things is you start to become conscious of making informed decisions to have or want these things in your life, and to gain or go about gaining them and pursuing them successfully in a fulfilling way. It's different when you don't have awareness of a bigger picture, essentially, more options, things that you can do, things that you could do that you don't know about. When you follow something that has just been presented to you, it's very, very different to making an informed decision to pursue that. And this is essentially the purpose behind this. It's just to challenge your awareness, challenge your perception of your life and the way in which you're living it. I'm somebody who's very, very fascinated by human behavior. Why do we do what we do? And I'm an avid people watcher. I love to understand why people do what they do, whether it's positive or negative behavior. There's always a loving intention behind everything that we do. No matter what we do, we're seeking something pure, we're seeking something fulfilling, we're ultimately seeking love in some way, shape or form. However, when we are not aware of this, sometimes we can fall into behavior patterns and habits which are actually giving us less of what we want, or taking us on a really, really, really long road to get what we want, when in actual fact, whatever we want, whatever we need, whatever we desire, it's our divine birthright. It's our choice. It's within our power as creators to have that now. So yeah, just to summarize, state, story, strategy, that's 3 things to think a little bit more about, maybe do a little bit of research about. It might have planted a seed or piqued some interest. But yeah, this is day 1 of cold shower therapy. And I'm looking forward to sharing more with you guys as the days go on. Thank you very much, and speak to you soon.